There I was, carefully wrapping the expensive Easter gifts I'd bought for my family, my heart full of excitement thinking about our upcoming celebration. I had spent weeks planning the perfect Easter dinner, just like every year for the past 3 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom, and I smiled as I opened it, expecting warm words about our family gathering. Instead, the message hit me like a truck. "You're not welcome this Easter." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. After everything I had done after the $9,800 I spent supporting them annually. Before I tell you how this family drama unfolded, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever felt unappreciated by family, and do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I always thought I had the perfect family. My dad, Robert, 58, worked as a skilled mechanic at the local Ford dealership, his hands always smudged with grease, but his heart always full of love for us. Mom, Margaret, 55, sold cosmetics at the downtown Macy's, bringing home stories about difficult customers and makeup trends that made us laugh around the dinner table. My younger sister, Jessica, now 25, was the baby of the family, 3 years younger than me, with bright blue eyes and a smile that could charm anyone. I was always the responsible one, the daughter who made honor roll throughout high school, who worked part-time jobs to save for college, who studied accounting because I wanted financial stability. My parents called me their golden girl, and I wore that title with pride. Jessica was different, more free-spirited, more focused on having fun than planning for the future. She dropped out of community college after one semester, preferring to work retail jobs that let her socialize rather than commit to anything long-term. But 3 years ago, everything changed when disaster struck our family. Dad suffered a severe back injury during a workplace accident when a hydraulic lift malfunctioned, crushing 2 vertebrae and leaving him unable to work for months. The workers' compensation barely covered his medical bills, let alone our family's living expenses. Mom's hours at Macy's got cut drastically as the store struggled during economic downturns, reducing her income from full-time to barely 20 hours per week. The bills started piling up immediately. Their monthly electricity bill soared to $180 during Ohio winters as their older home struggled with inefficient heating. The water bill climbed to $95 monthly after rates increased citywide. Their internet and cable package cost $140 monthly, something they refused to cancel because Dad needed entertainment during his recovery, and Mom needed internet for job applications. Jessica, despite living at home rent-free, contributed absolutely nothing to household expenses. Instead, she spent her retail earnings on clothes, makeup, and weekend trips with friends. When I visited during those early months of Dad's recovery, I watched her show off new designer purses while Mom worried openly about keeping the utilities connected. The contrast broke my heart. That's when Mom called me, crying harder than I had ever heard her cry before. "Layla, honey, we might lose the house," she sobbed into the phone. "We cannot keep up with the bills, and your father feels so guilty about not being able to provide." The desperation in her voice shattered me completely. Dad got on the phone, his usually strong voice cracking as he apologized for their situation, explaining how helpless he felt, watching bills accumulate while his back slowly healed. Without hesitation, I made the decision that would define the next 3 years of my life. "Do not worry about the utility bills anymore," I told them. "I will handle the electricity, water, and internet. Just focus on getting Dad better and getting back on your feet." The relief in their voices was immediate and overwhelming. They cried tears of gratitude, promising they would pay me back once Dad returned to work and their finances stabilized. I immediately set up automatic payments from my checking account to cover their monthly utilities. Every month, like clockwork, $315, left my account totaling $9,780 annually. It was a significant chunk of my accounting salary, but seeing my parents' relief made every sacrifice worthwhile. I felt proud knowing I could support my family during their darkest time, proud to be the daughter they could depend on when life got difficult. The first few months went smoothly, exactly as I'd expected them to go. Mom and Dad called regularly to check on me, express their gratitude, and share updates about Dad's physical therapy progress. They seemed genuinely appreciative of my financial support, often mentioning how much my help meant to their peace of mind. I felt good about my decision, knowing I was making a real difference in their lives during such a challenging period. But by the 6th month, I started noticing subtle changes in their communication patterns. Their phone calls became less frequent, and when they did call, the conversations felt shorter and more focused on their immediate needs, rather than genuine concern for my well-being. They stopped asking about my job, my social life, or my own financial situation. Instead, our interactions increasingly revolved around additional emergencies that required extra money beyond the regular utility payments. First, it was the washing machine that supposedly broke down, suddenly requiring $400 for repairs. Then their car needed new tires, another $350. Each request came with dramatic explanations about how these unexpected expenses threatened their stability, how they had nowhere else to turn for help. I found myself saying yes repeatedly, not wanting to seem unsupportive during their continued struggles. Meanwhile, Jessica's social media presence told a completely different story. Her Instagram and Facebook accounts showcased weekend getaways to Cincinnati and Cleveland, expensive dinners at trendy restaurants, and shopping hauls featuring designer clothes and accessories. She posted photos of new makeup collections, concert tickets, and spa days with friends. The disconnect between my family's supposed financial crisis and Jessica's lavish lifestyle made me increasingly uncomfortable, but I pushed those concerns aside, telling myself I was being too judgmental. Last Thanksgiving revealed the first major warning sign that something was seriously wrong with our family dynamics. I arrived at my parents' house carrying an expensive turkey, homemade side dishes, and thoughtful gifts for everyone, just as I'd done for previous holidays. But when I walked into their dining room, I was shocked to see an elaborate feast that must have cost hundreds of dollars. There were multiple appetizers, premium wines, imported cheeses, and desserts from the expensive bakery downtown. Jessica had apparently orchestrated the entire spread, and my parents could not stop praising her efforts. "Look what Jessica did for us," Mom gushed repeatedly. "She has such a good heart, always thinking about family." Dad nodded enthusiastically, complimenting Jessica's thoughtfulness and maturity. They acted as if Jessica had single-handedly saved Thanksgiving completely, overlooking my own contributions, or the fact that I had been financially supporting their household for over 2 years. When I gently reminded them about the utility payments I'd been making, hoping for some acknowledgement of my ongoing support, Mom's response chilled me to the bone. "Oh, honey, do not keep bringing that up," she said dismissively. "We know what you do for us, but you do not need to remind us constantly." Her tone suggested that my financial support was expected rather than appreciated, that mentioning it made me seem petty or attention-seeking. That evening marked the first time I truly questioned whether my family valued my sacrifices or simply took them for granted. I drove home feeling confused and hurt, wondering if I'd misread their gratitude all along. But I convinced myself that they were just stressed and that their behavior would improve once Dad fully recovered and returned to work. The months following Thanksgiving brought even more disturbing revelations about my family's true attitudes toward my financial contributions. During an unexpected visit in January, I noticed a massive 75-inch television mounted in their living room, a stark contrast to their old 32-inch model. When I asked about it, Dad casually mentioned that Jessica bought it so we could all enjoy watching shows together, without any explanation of how Jessica afforded such an expensive purchase. February brought news that Jessica had finally found steady employment at a local marketing company, earning $2,200 monthly. I felt relieved, assuming she would now contribute to household expenses and eventually allow me to reduce my financial support. However, when I suggested this possibility during a family dinner, Mom immediately shut down the conversation. "Jessica is still young and needs to establish herself," she explained. "She should be able to enjoy her money while she's in her 20s. The irony was not lost on me. At 28, I was apparently old enough to sacrifice my financial freedom for my family's benefit. But Jessica, at 25, was too young to contribute to the household that sheltered and fed her. The double standard became increasingly obvious and increasingly painful as weeks passed. March brought the most shocking revelation of all, when our longtime neighbor, Mrs. Linda Patterson, pulled me aside during a chance encounter at the grocery store. Linda had lived next door to my parents for over 20 years, watching Jessica and me grow up, and she had always been like an honorary grandmother to our family. Her expression was serious as she asked if we could talk privately. "Layla, I hope you do not mind me saying this, but I'm worried about how your family has been talking about your situation," Linda said carefully. She explained that Jessica had been bragging to friends and neighbors about how her stupid older sister paid all the utility bills, while she got to keep her entire paycheck for personal expenses. According to Linda, Jessica regularly told people that older siblings should take care of family responsibilities, and that she deserved to enjoy her youth while I handled the boring adult stuff. The weeks leading up to Easter filled me with anticipation and excitement, just like every year since I'd started the family tradition of hosting elaborate holiday celebrations. I spent hours researching the perfect gifts for each family member, eventually settling on a $300 spa package for mom, a premium tool set for dad that cost $250, and a designer handbag for Jessica that I knew she had been wanting, priced at $325. I also placed a special order at Bella's Bakery, Columbus's most renowned dessert shop, for a custom Easter cake decorated with intricate sugar flowers and personalized messages for each family member. The cake alone cost $140, but I wanted this Easter to be extra special, a celebration of family togetherness and the love we shared despite the recent tensions I'd been feeling. My planning included coordinating with mom about the menu, offering to bring side dishes and appetizers to complement whatever main course she wanted to prepare. I spent Tuesday evening texting her detailed questions about dietary preferences for Jessica's new boyfriend, whom I had not yet met but wanted to accommodate. I suggested bringing my famous honey-glazed ham homemade potato salad and the green bean casserole that Dad always requested for special occasions. Wednesday evening, 2 days before Easter Sunday, I was arranging flowers in a beautiful centerpiece when my phone buzzed with a text message from Mom. Expecting her response to my menu questions or perhaps a sweet message about looking forward to our celebration, I smiled as I opened her message. Instead, 4 words destroyed everything I thought I knew about my place in my family. "You are not welcome this Easter." I read the message 3 times, certain I had misunderstood something. My hands began shaking as I immediately called Mom's number, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cold and distant in a way I had never heard before. "Mom, I just got your message," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake, Layla," she replied flatly. "Jessica wants to host Easter this year with her boyfriend Marcus, and they need privacy to make a good impression. You understand how important this relationship is for Jessica's future." Her words hit me like physical blows, each one more devastating than the last. After 3 years of unwavering financial support, after decades of being the reliable daughter, I was being excluded from my own family's celebration. "But Mom," I protested, "what about everything I've done for this family? What about the $9,000 I spend every year keeping your utilities connected?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I wondered if the call had dropped. When she finally spoke, her response revealed the depth of her ingratitude and entitlement. "That money is your responsibility as the older daughter," she said matter-of-factly. "Jessica has finally found someone special, and she deserves the chance to host her first holiday as an adult woman. You have had plenty of Easters with the family. This one belongs to Jessica." The casual dismissal of my sacrifices, the complete lack of appreciation for everything I had given up, and the blatant favoritism toward my sister crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity. Before I could stop myself, I asked the question that had been building inside me for months. Does Jessica contribute anything to this household, or does she still spend all her money on herself while I pay for everything? Mom's defensive response confirmed what I had suspected, but hoped was not true. "Jessica works hard at her job and she deserves to enjoy her earnings," Mom snapped. "She is building her life and her relationship. You are established in your career and your life. It is time for you to step back and let Jessica have her moment." The conversation continued for several more painful minutes, but every word Mom spoke made it clearer that I was viewed as a financial resource rather than a beloved family member. After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence for nearly an hour, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Then I remembered my conversation with Mrs. Linda and decided I needed to understand the full scope of my family's betrayal. I called Linda, immediately apologizing for the late hour, but explaining that I desperately needed to know what else my family had been saying about me. Linda's revelations shattered any remaining illusions I had about my family's respect for me. She explained that my parents and Jessica had held multiple family meetings over the past several months, discussing how to gradually reduce my involvement in family events while maintaining my financial contributions. Jessica had convinced them that having me around made her feel immature and dependent, and that excluding me from some gatherings would help her establish independence and authority in her relationship. The most devastating detail Linda shared was Jessica's exact quote from a recent conversation with neighborhood friends. "My sister is such a pushover that she will keep paying our bills no matter how we treat her. She needs us more than we need her, so we can basically do whatever we want." The cruelty and calculation behind those words revealed that my exclusion from Easter was not a spontaneous decision, but the result of deliberate planning and manipulation. That night, I made the decision that would change everything. Sitting at my kitchen table with a calculator and 3 years' worth of bank statements, I tallied the exact amount of money I had spent supporting my family, $29,400 in utility payments, plus an additional $4,700 in emergency expenses they had requested. Nearly $35,000 of my hard-earned money had gone to people who viewed my generosity as weakness and my love as obligation. I opened my laptop and systematically canceled every automatic payment I had set up for my family's utilities. First, I called the electric company and removed my credit card from their account, transferring billing responsibility back to my parents. Then I contacted the water department and the internet provider, explaining that I would no longer be responsible for payments on their accounts. Each call felt both liberating and terrifying as I dismantled the financial safety net I had provided for 3 years. Finally, I composed a detailed text message to my family group chat, something I had never used for serious communication before. Since I am not welcome at Easter, my financial support is not welcome either. Effective immediately, I have canceled all utility payments. You will need to handle your own electricity, water, and internet bills moving forward. Over the past 3 years, I have contributed $34,900 to this family. I hope Jessica's boyfriend is impressed with the hospitality you can provide using your own resources. The immediate aftermath of my decision unfolded exactly as I had anticipated, yet somehow still shocked me with its intensity and desperation. Monday morning, just 2 days after Easter Sunday, my phone began ringing at 6:30 a.m. with frantic calls from Mom. I let each call go to voicemail, listening later as her voice progressed from confusion to anger to outright panic as she realized the electricity had been disconnected. Her first voicemail was relatively calm. "Layla, honey, there seems to be some problem with the electric bill. Can you please call the company and sort this out?" By her fourth voicemail, recorded around noon, her tone had shifted dramatically. "This is ridiculous, Layla. You cannot just abandon your family over one little disagreement. Call me back immediately." The progression from entitlement to desperation revealed everything I needed to know about how my family truly viewed me. Tuesday brought even more dramatic developments as the water service was discontinued. Dad called this time, his voice cracking with emotion as he left a rambling 10-minute voicemail explaining how he had tried to contact the utility companies himself, only to learn that I had officially removed my payment authorization and transferred responsibility back to them. He begged me to reconsider, promising that they would work something out and that Jessica was just going through a phase with her new relationship. The most telling aspect of Dad's message was his admission that they had not saved any money during the 3 years I'd been covering their utilities. Instead of using my financial support as a bridge while they recovered from his injury, they had treated it as permanent funding for an upgraded lifestyle. They had no emergency fund, no backup plan, and no realistic understanding of their actual monthly expenses. Wednesday evening brought the final blow when their internet service was terminated. Within hours, Jessica called me for the first time in over 6 months, her voice a mixture of fury and fear as she realized that her social media presence and work-from-home capabilities were now compromised. She had never called to thank me for my support, never called to check on my well-being, never called to include me in family discussions. But the moment her comfortable lifestyle was threatened, she suddenly remembered my phone number. "You are being completely unreasonable," Jessica shouted into the phone before I even had a chance to say hello. "How could you punish Mom and Dad just because I wanted to host one holiday? This is about them, not me." Her attempt to manipulate the situation by framing herself as an innocent bystander revealed the same calculating nature that had orchestrated my exclusion from Easter. I remained calm during Jessica's tirade, allowing her to exhaust her anger before responding. "Jessica, you told the neighbors that I was a pushover who would keep paying bills no matter how badly you treated me," I said quietly. "You convinced our parents to exclude me from family gatherings while expecting me to continue funding your lifestyle. This is not about one holiday. This is about 3 years of being taken for granted and treated with disrespect." Her response was perhaps the most honest thing Jessica had ever said to me, "But we need that money. We cannot afford to live without your help." The admission confirmed what I had suspected all along. My family had never viewed my financial support as temporary assistance during a difficult period. They had come to see it as a permanent entitlement, something they deserved simply because I was capable of providing it. Thursday morning brought a surprise visit from Mom and Dad, who appeared at my apartment door looking haggard and desperate. Dad had clearly been crying, and Mom's usually perfect makeup was smudged and uneven. They begged to come inside, promising they just wanted to talk things through and find a solution that worked for everyone. I let them in primarily because I wanted to hear what they thought constituted a reasonable resolution to the situation they had created. For over an hour, they alternated between apologies and justifications, trying to convince me that their treatment of me had been a misunderstanding rather than deliberate disrespect. Mom explained that they had gotten carried away with supporting Jessica's relationship and had not realized how their actions affected me. Dad promised that things would be different going forward and that they would make sure I felt appreciated if I resumed the utility payments. But their proposed solution revealed that they still did not understand the fundamental problem with our relationship. They offered to include me in future Easter celebrations and to make Jessica contribute $50 monthly toward household expenses in exchange for my continued financial support of their utilities. The fact that they viewed $50 as a meaningful contribution while expecting me to continue paying over $9,000 annually showed how little they valued fairness or reciprocity. I explained to them calmly but firmly that my decision was final. I have learned that love should never be one-sided. I told them a phrase that would become my mantra in the months ahead. For 3 years, I believed I was helping my family through a difficult time. Instead, I was enabling you to take advantage of my generosity while showing me no respect or appreciation. I will not continue to fund a lifestyle for people who do not value my presence in their lives. The first month after cutting off my family's financial support was emotionally challenging in ways I had not anticipated. Despite their terrible treatment of me, I found myself feeling guilty and questioning whether I'd made the right decision. Years of conditioning as the responsible daughter had programmed me to prioritize my family's needs above my own well-being, and breaking that pattern required conscious effort every single day. I decided to invest in professional therapy to help process my feelings and develop healthier relationship boundaries. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a family counselor specializing in toxic family dynamics, helped me understand that my guilt was a normal response to breaking free from a manipulative situation. She explained that families often designate one member as the giver, while others become permanent takers, and that changing this dynamic typically requires the giver to make difficult decisions that feel selfish but are actually necessary for self-preservation. Through therapy, I began to recognize patterns in my family relationships that extended far beyond the recent financial situation. I recalled childhood instances where I was expected to sacrifice my wants for Jessica's needs, times when my achievements were downplayed, while her minor accomplishments were celebrated extensively, and occasions when I was criticized for not being giving enough, while Jessica was praised for her occasional small gestures of kindness. Dr. Martinez helped me develop a plan for using the money I had previously spent on my family's utilities, transforming it from a source of resentment into a foundation for building the life I actually wanted. $815 monthly might not seem like a fortune, but redirecting that money toward my own goals created possibilities I had not considered in years. I enrolled in a weekly yoga class at the upscale studio downtown, something I had always wanted to try but considered too expensive when I was supporting my family. The classes cost $60 monthly, but they provided not only physical exercise, but also a peaceful space for mental clarity and stress relief. I also began getting monthly massages, treating myself to the $80 sessions that helped me relax and feel pampered in ways I had forgotten were possible. For the first time in my adult life, I started taking weekend trips without worrying about the cost or feeling guilty about spending money on myself. I visited Chicago for a long weekend exploring museums and trying expensive restaurants without calculating how much the trip cost compared to my family's monthly utility bill. I booked a spa weekend in Michigan, enjoying treatments and relaxation that felt like luxury after years of financial stress. My wardrobe, which had suffered during the years when every extra dollar went to my family, finally got the attention it deserved. I bought professional clothes that made me feel confident at work, casual outfits that reflected my personality, and even some special occasion pieces for the social life I was beginning to cultivate. Shopping for myself without guilt felt revolutionary after years of denying my own needs. Most importantly, I began building relationships with people who appreciated my presence rather than just my financial contributions. I joined a book club through my local library, connecting with women who shared my interests in mystery novels and contemporary fiction. I accepted invitations from coworkers to attend happy hours and weekend events, discovering friendships that had been waiting to develop if I had only made myself available. Through these new relationships, I gained perspective on what healthy family dynamics actually looked like. My book club friend Amanda talked about her close relationship with her sister, describing how they supported each other emotionally and practically, without keeping score or creating debt. My coworker James shared stories about family gatherings where everyone contributed according to their abilities and everyone felt valued for their unique contributions. 6 months after my decision to stop supporting my family financially, I received a letter in the mail from Mom, the first written communication from any family member since our confrontation. The letter was 4 pages long, filled with apologies and explanations that revealed both genuine remorse and continued failure to understand the real issues in our relationship. She acknowledged that they had taken me for granted and failed to show proper appreciation for my support, which felt like progress compared to their initial defensiveness. However, the letter also included details about their current financial struggles that seemed designed to make me feel guilty and reconsider my decision. She described how they had been forced to downgrade their internet plan, how Dad had taken a part-time job despite his back problems, and how Jessica had finally agreed to contribute $150 monthly toward household expenses. While these changes suggested they were learning to manage their finances independently, the way Mom presented them made it clear that she viewed their struggles as my responsibility, rather than the natural consequences of their previous choices. I wrote a response letter that took me several drafts to get right, wanting to communicate my feelings clearly, without leaving room for manipulation or misunderstanding. I explained that I loved them and wished them well, but that I had learned to prioritize relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I described the positive changes in my life since redirecting my energy toward people and activities that brought me joy rather than stress. Most importantly, I used Mom's own words against her to illustrate why our relationship could not return to its previous dynamic. You wrote that Jessica deserved to enjoy her earnings while I handled family responsibilities because I was established in my career, I reminded her, but being financially stable does not mean I exist to subsidize other people's choices. I have learned that the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them handle their own consequences, and the greatest gift you can give yourself is walking away from people who do not value your presence. That letter marked the end of my guilt and the beginning of genuine peace with my decision. I realized that I had spent 3 years trying to buy love from people who were willing to accept my money but not respect my worth. Jessica had been right about one thing: I was established in my career and my life. But instead of viewing that stability as an obligation to support others, I now understood it as an opportunity to build the relationships and experiences that truly mattered to me. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to enable their dysfunction. Sometimes the most important lesson you can teach people is that your kindness has limits, and your generosity comes with expectations of basic respect. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to walk away from people who love your contributions more than they love you. 1 year later, I am happier and more fulfilled than I have been in decades. I have built a life filled with people who value me for who I am, rather than what I can provide. I have learned to set boundaries that protect my well-being while still allowing space for love and generosity with those who deserve it. And I have discovered that true family is not always about blood relations, but about finding your tribe among people who celebrate your presence rather than exploit your absence. What would you do if you discovered your family viewed your love as obligation and your generosity as entitlement? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between maintaining family peace and protecting your own well-being? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video if my story resonated with your own experiences. Subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries and finding strength in difficult family situations. And please share this video with anyone who might need to hear that their worth is not measured by their willingness to sacrifice everything for others. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships that honor both your heart and your boundaries.